ruin anybody's night with a long meeting, but the only item on our agenda is going to be tabled, so let's get that out of the way first. All right. First, I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning and Zoning meeting for the City of Smyrna. Today is Monday, May 8th, 2017 at 6 p.m., and this meeting's called to order. At this time, we'd like to ask that all electronic devices be turned off as they interfere with our recording equipment. For those of you joining us for the first time, this meeting is conducted much like a council meeting. As such, each application will include a presentation from city staff, followed by a question and answer session between staff and the board. Case and answer questions from the board. Tonight we will have no applicants. We're going to table everything, and then we're going to have a presentation from staff. So there will be no questions on the other side, maybe some brief discussion. If there's anybody that's in attendance that would like to come forward and speak, we'll have a time for that. Anyway, please state your name and address for the record. Sign the sign-in sheet at the podium. All right. The first item on the agenda is 2017-172. This is zoning application Z17-009. It's rezoning from R20 to RAD conditional for the development of 15 home subdivision at 3.64 units per acre on a 4.12 acres at land lot 332 and 333. This is a southwest corner of east-west connector and Fontaine Road. The applicant is Weekly Homes. This item is going to be tabled to, guys, June 12th in this chamber. You get a motion to table, please. We got to get everybody to sign in, or maybe just me. Motion, Mr. Monroe. Second, Mr. Roberts. Please vote. It is approved 5-0, so it will be tabled. All right, the next item on our agenda is item number 2017-174. This is zoning case Z17-008. It's the rezoning from R15 to RAD conditional for the development of 3 single-family homes at a density of 3.57 units per acre. This is 0.699 acres in land lot 335. This is 4149 North Cooper Lake Road. The applicant is Craftmark Development, LLC. This item is going to be tabled to the June 12th, 2017 Planning and Zoning Board meeting at the request of the applicant. Can I get a motion to table the item, please? We have a motion, Mr. Rice, a second, Ms. Lightfoot. All in favor or opposed? It is tabled 5-0. All right. The next item on our agenda is item number 2017-173. This is the presentation of the South Cobb Corridor Study by Croy Engineering. Yeah, Mr. Sudworth, you want to give them the background? All right. My apologies.
Road did. But I'm not asking you to vote on it. I'm just presenting this to you so that you're aware of where we are with this. It'll go on to Mayor and Council in June, and then we will follow it up with our 4th study later on regarding the comprehensive plan. But we did contract with Croy and Associates to conduct the South Cobb Drive study. The money used for this study, the majority of the money, it was a matching grant. It is surface transportation program funding out of GDOT. The city matched our portion of it. So this is a little more transportation oriented with land use as opposed to Spring Road, which was more land use related with transportation alternatives. So this is a little bit in reverse. But having said that, I'd like to introduce Dan Dobry from Croy, and he'll give you sort of the highlights of what the study says. Dan?
Thanks, Ken, and good evening, everyone. While making the presentation, and even though my last slide does say questions, if you have a question during the course of the presentation, I'd be more than happy to answer it if that'll help you with the understanding of the project. We also, later on, some of the displays that are shown on the presentation, you can't see a lot of detail. I brought boards of what we presented at the public meeting, so you can get up close and personal with the alternative, the concept designs that we've presented. I'll hit the, I just moved this up. Okay, and then I'll keep going.
We'll move it around.
Nope. All right, super. Very good. At the outset of the study, to help guide the work that we did, the ultimate product that we would present for approval to the city, we had the overriding goals and a vision. Because of the transportation nature of the South Cobb Drive corridor, that we enhanced pedestrian vehicular safety was paramount. We also, it's a very auto-centric corridor. We wanted to do things that would promote walking and bicycling and transit. With the connectivity to the adjacent neighborhoods, to be able to easily access the corridor, and connectivity across the corridor as well was a guiding factor. Even though, as Ken had said, it primarily was looking at transportation concepts to improve the corridor, they had to fit with encouraging development and redevelopment of some of the sites there. When we did our stakeholder interviews, which included interviewing the mayor and city council members, one of the consistent themes was the corridor doesn't look that good. So anything that we could do to improve the aesthetics of the corridor, enhance that sense of place was of value. And then, of course, we wanted to enhance the overall quality of life for the adjacent neighbors, folks that work there and would shop there. So as a state route, South Cobb Drive is a state route 280, and is a major corridor in Cobb County. We wanted to make sure that we got the diverse participation from reviewing agencies, so that our study partners, with the study being led by Smyrna's Community Development, we also had representatives from Georgia DOT, not only their Office of Planning from downtown, but the traffic folks from the district office in Chamblee. The Atlanta Regional Commission participated. From Cobb County, we had CobbLink, which is the transit system, because we were going to be making recommendations for their service and operation, Cobb DOT. And even though the corridor is wholly within the city of Smyrna, Cobb Community Development, because of being adjacent, the city limits just to the west, was interested, so we invited them as well. And we did make an effort to make sure that we, even though we didn't abut the Spring Road LCI and the Georgia Tech's Cumberland study, the overall vision that the city has, the goals to achieve citywide, we wanted to make sure that we were all in tune together. So we coordinated with those other studies as well. We wanted to engage the public as much as possible. So we did a combination of things. In addition to the website, we established a website where you could go for current information. We did the traditional open houses, invited the public, both times, once in October and in February. It was over at the Wolf Adult Center, and we had very good turnout, about 85 people each time. We were thrilled with the turnout. But we also made it a big effort to get out to where folks were. We wanted to engage people when they were out and about. So we participated in one of the Food Truck Tuesday nights, got to get the input. We were at the Fall Jonquil Festival, working with Councilwoman Wilkinson. We had a special public meeting in December here in City Council. Good participation, great discussion, and the Smyrna Area Chamber of Commerce meeting, they have those quarterly meetings at Brawner Hall. To engage the business community, we went out and set up our display and got comments then. So it was a pretty intensive public engagement so that we're touching all the bases to understand everyone's different perspectives on improvements in the corridor. Okay, part of it was with zoning and land use impacts and recommendations. The study area encompassed 147.5 acres. The residential parcels, which are just off the corridors, about 400. And then the commercial properties along the corridor were 153. 85% of the parcels are zoned general commercial, which allows a lot of things. And of that 85, 15% were auto-centric. Tires, oil, body shop, everything, car related. So that's what's out there today. In coming up with our transportation improvements, we were also looking at areas where potentially redevelopment could occur. Looked where parcels could be assembled that made sense, that they would be large enough for someone to invest the money, would have appropriate road frontage and size to encourage that redevelopment. So we ended up with 7 areas, the ones highlighted in blue, that we thought would benefit for that redevelopment with the roadway improvements. And I say roadway, but I do want to continue to emphasize it was multimodal. Transit, pedestrian, and bicycle, all were considered equally. In the report recommendations regarding land use is that all the proposed redevelopment areas would be reflected in the future land use plan as mixed use. That was a feedback we had received with our stakeholder interviews and the public engagement, and also that the South Cobb Design Corridor Standards should be amended to encourage quality commercial redevelopment, protection of the adjacent neighborhoods, no question more interparcel connectivity, and which would be supported by those assemblages, and sustained mixed-use development. So after all the public engagement and the public involvement, came up with different design concepts. What was interesting as we went through this process is there were certain concepts that had uniformly people were saying, we need to do this, we need to do this. And these 6 things were a pocket park at Church Street and South Cobb Drive, sort of a statement area for the corridor, multi-use paths on both sides of South Cobb Drive. A lot of road improvement projects these days, we're working on one in Henry County. It's a sidewalk on one side, a multi-use path on the other. People said, no, we want to be able to use the facility on both sides of the roadway. It should be a multi-use path, but bigger than a sidewalk, so that multi-use path on both sides. The intersecting streets don't all have sidewalk. This is our connectivity theme. Would be able to complete the sidewalk network, both east and west of South Cobb Drive on the intersecting streets. And if not, it's not really sufficient room for separate bicycle facilities. Implementing sharrows to share the road with the bicyclists would be part of the overall plan. Another recurring theme was access management. People complain it's safe, not safe turning in and out. The center two-way turn lane is dangerous. You never know what's going. So implementing access management, pretty uniform about doing something at Powder Spring Street and South Cobb Drive to improve that intersection. That was a recurring theme. And then with the aesthetics would be with the landscaping and the road beautification. So as we put the alternatives together and brought those to the public for their input, in the second round of meetings, each of the improvements or concept, each of the concepts contained these elements. These were consistent for each of the alternatives. So what we were thinking, now to be a little more specific about those universal concepts, the ideas that we had were brought forward from folks for improving Powder Spring Street was a separate right turn lane on each side or each approach of Powder Springs. The being able to make a left turn more safely, the traffic signal head would be separate left turn phasing, so you'd get a green arrow to turn onto South Cobb Drive from Powder Spring Street, and trying to change the approach grades because you come up from both sides and the sight distance isn't always what you'd like it to be. So these are the thoughts that would go into improving the Powder Spring Street intersection. This is just a rendering that would show the traffic lanes separating the pedestrian and bicycle activity and the multi-use pathways with a landscaping strip. Wouldn't be the 2-foot grass strip. It would be something that could be 5 to 10 feet, depending on the detailed design, where the landscaping plan would be give more flexibility as to what could be installed to improve the look of the corridor. Here's a rendering of what the pocket park at Church Street could look like. And here's the sharrows and bicycle accommodations and sidewalks. These just renderings to give you a flavor for what could be done. And we developed a landscape plan along the corridor with a variety of trees and shrubs to, again, improve the aesthetics along South Cobb Drive. Okay. Access management. It's a big word like sustainable development. What does it mean? How do we put it into practice? Well, the underlying goal to be achieved is you control the locations of where and how traffic enters and exits the roadway. And where traffic crosses each other, let's say a left turn out of a development with an opposing through volume, where they could meet are referred to in traffic engineering as conflict points. And so what we want to do is reduce the number of conflict points between the vehicles by controlling that entering and exiting the roadway. So with fewer vehicular conflict points, traffic flow is improved and the number of crashes is greatly reduced. We found the federal government had done a study that you can reduce crashes by up to 32% with access management techniques. It's a significant change. And some of these techniques that could be applied in the South Cobb Drive corridor is the consolidation of driveways. Driveways for everybody out there, and it's tough. Cars are entering and exiting the roadway all over. You just never really know. And you can channelize the turning maneuvers and the entering and exiting with the construction of medians. I'm going to come back to the medians. Okay. So our improvement concepts. We ultimately had 4 concepts that we presented at our second public information open house in February. Did a pretty extensive comment period, really asked people to share their thoughts. And where we ended up was, it was almost a tie, the dead heat in the number of comments we've received with concepts 2 and 3. With the primary difference between concepts 2 and 3 is keeping the existing 2-way left turn lane or building a median. And people were, the citizens that participated in meetings were equally passionate about both. I was surprised the feelings for whether or not you should have a median. But concept 2, again, the universal concepts were all part of that with the Maltese path, the beautification, Powder Spring Street improvements. To facilitate transit operations and have less of an impact to flow on South Cobb Drive, concept 2 added bus pull-offs. So they would, when passengers were boarding and alighting, the buses out of the through lane, and traffic keeps moving as opposed to stopping while the bus is in the lane. And we also maintain the pedestrian crossing that Georgia DOT is going to be putting in on South Cobb Drive near Plaza Drive. So concept 3, if you could see it at the inset at the very top, we have that landscape median between the lanes. This was the primary difference between 2 and 3. And like I said, it was almost a dead heat of people wanting concept 2 and concept 3. Some of with the median, some of the ideas that were presented is, I guess, what we call a Michigan left. You could go past the intersection. Let's say if you're northbound on Windy Hill on South Cobb Drive and you wanted to turn left to head west on Windy Hill Road, you deny the left turn there, take them beyond the intersection, they make a U-turn and come back and make a right turn. So your signal timing at that major intersection doesn't have to accommodate the time for the northbound left turns. So we looked at implementing something like that at the Windy Hill intersection. Also at the intersections, a queue jumper lane, that's the bus to the right of the cars, where it would have its own lane and get a sort of a preemption light. They get to go first. They get out of the, move up the roadway, and then the rest of the traffic comes. Now, we did present a concept 4, and we were asked to show you this idea, is there would be a parallel roadway constructed outside of the through lanes of South Cobb Drive, which would allow for on-street parking, a lot of redevelopment, don't have a lot of room for parking on site, so that we would create on-street parking. The bus would operate in this additional lane, and it would be further separation of the pedestrians and the bicyclists from the speed limit drivers on South Cobb Drive. So this multi-use boulevard, which or adding the multi-use boulevard as alternative 4, was something so that we could really gauge the citizens' thoughts and ideas, but there was not a lot of support for this particular concept. And that's probably a little better rendering of how that would be separated with the landscaping, the through street from the on-street parking, the bicyclists, and the local access for the businesses right there that front South Cobb Drive. There's actually a corridor in California where they're implementing this, so we're excited about the results, how traffic flows, how it spurs development. As this particular concept is actually being implemented in California. So with that, and as Ken had said, this is has more of a transportation flavor to it because of the corridor, but we're always cognizant of the opportunities to improve and enhance the corridor. Atlanta Road, Concord Road, South Cobb Drive should all be part of the bigger vision and ideas and goals for the city. So thank you very much for the opportunity to present. If you have any questions, you want to see the boards up closer, I'd be more than happy to field those.
Thanks very much. The was 15% the automotive? Was that the highest concentration of any business along the corridor?
Yes, sir.
Interesting.
Yeah, we go into more detail in the report.
Very good.
We're editing it. It will be very shortly, though.
And what I would also like to add is some of these recommendations may be driven by the government in terms of coordinating with GDOT for future implementation monies, of which the study would be the basis for that. Some of these are also recommendations for the government to adopt, but deal with individual properties when they are ready to redevelop. This isn't an issue where I don't want anyone to leave, just like we were talking about the Georgia Tech study in the Spring Road. A lot of those recommendations are when that property is ready to develop, this is where we are, this is what we would like to start the conversation at. And that's a similar approach here as well.
Very good. Yeah, it's interesting that you had a lot of support for the two-way turning lane. I can't imagine why people would want to keep it. I mean, it seems like a big hazard to me. I live right off of South Cobb Drive, Bank Street. Going out there is like taking your life into your own hands if you're going to go left for us. In fact, I'll quite often go up to Concord and maybe go out of my way because I feel safer on that road now that they've made the improvements. It's kind of interesting that people still want the two-way freedom.
I concur. And it wasn't the business owners. You would think that
Yeah.
someone saying, okay, now, instead of making a left directly into my business, you have to go a quarter mile down the street, make a U-turn, and come back in. That was not who we heard from. It wasn't the business owner. It was the citizens who felt that the indirect access was in some way or another a very bad thing. It's hard to comprehend, but
Yeah.
I was interested actually in the transit component. Now, you said in phase 2 you have these turnouts for the buses. That's local fixed route service.
that's correct.
So, I mean, the concept, in phase 3, you've got a preempted for the bus to accelerate and get ahead of these. Does that tie into like a future maybe thought around BRT in South Cobb?
That was part of the conversation. The bus pull-off, if it was to, let's say, evolve to BRT, that would require reconstructing and almost putting in an entirely different lane. The thought we had is maybe the multi-use boulevard would lend itself better to, some type of high-capacity transit service. The opportunity to convert that in the future might have some merit to it, but as it turned out, there was very little support for that additional roadway parallel to the through street. But we did engage in that conversation, and there was a consideration as what would be the access point at 285 if we were to extend something down the South Cobb Drive. Would there be a BRT or some type of new or reconstructed interchange to allow them to enter the managed lanes that GDOT has planned for 285 on the west side? So a lot of unknowns, but we have at least initiated the conversation.
Ron, I would also add, this study is more oriented from a transit point of view to what Dan had talked about, and that's dealing with the existing Cobb Link service. That's why they were part of the group that we met with regularly on how to prove that existing service. In terms of future stuff, this isn't really a springboard for that. Again, I don't want anybody to think that this is the beginning discussion of that. We did have people talk to us about that because they brought it up. But just as an FYI, as part of the community development's budget for FY18 that's under consideration now is matching money for a grant from ARC. And we have gotten approval to apply for that. And the intent of that grant is to do a transit feasibility study. Not putting any limits on it as to, oh, we want to see A, B, or C. It's, we're looking at the entire city to see if, how to deal with traffic congestion, and are there ways to improve, enhance, create, whatever the case may be. So I think your question it would probably be better addressed when we get into that transit feasibility study. Application for that is this month. We probably will not know if we've received that grant until the fall. Papers won't be signed until after the first of the year. So I don't anticipate any, stuff going out for bid to even select that consultant until early spring. But I did want you to know that we are working on that feasibility study on that. That this study is really dealing on the transit mention is really dealing with the existing situation and trying to improve that, whether it's pull-offs, separate lanes, or whatever.
Yeah, or dedicated lanes. Yeah. Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any further discussion? Good times. That's a little inside joke up here, guys.
I would like to just remind you all, we do have a steering committee meeting next Tuesday morning and stuff.
What time?
7:30
7:30.
Here at City Hall in the HR training room. Rusty will be heading that up from staff point of view, as I will be on vacation. And I'm here, if you got any questions, give Rusty or myself a call. But, the next meeting's next Tuesday.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other comments? All right. April 10th, 2017 Planning and Zoning meeting. Are the board members in possession of the minutes? Do they have any changes they'd like to make? Looks like we've read the minutes or not read the minutes. Ron Roberts with a motion to approve. Mr. Campo with a motion to leave. Second, sorry. All in favor? The minutes are approved. 4-0, 5-0. All right. Without any further business, this meeting is adjourned at 6:33.
Can I just pull this out? First phase effort to improve the whole Cobb. That was grant